one of the tabs is a landing page which has a white paper or a guide, whatever it may be, behind a form. But the other tab from a different vendor is a 30 to 40-minute podcast interview where this person has described the solution, talked about the outcome, and talked about how they got there. Which one is going to be more powerful, more useful for the potential buyer?
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky, and on today's call I'm on the line with the wonderful Mark Colgan from speakonpodcast.com. Now before we jump into the show, just a short second of pause to say thank you so very much for supporting the show. Your feedback across our various channels is nothing short of breathtaking, so thank you very much. So welcome to the show, Mark. Now, Mark, it's customary for us to learn a little bit more about you as our guest so that it gives some context as to how it was that you came to be where you are today. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with the My Future Business audience?
Hey, Rick. Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. Really excited to be here.
It's my pleasure.
So I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. So I followed quite a traditional career path. I went to university in the UK. As part of my degree, I was able to do a placement, so a year in industry, and I was fortunate enough to be offered a job before I even returned to my final year. So I completed my final year and then went back to the job that I did for the year on my placement. Mm-hmm. That was in recruitment. So that gave me the opportunity to learn sales, to learn account management, and to get very good at understanding a little about a lot. And what I mean by that is I was recruiting accountants into multiple industries across the East Midlands. So I had to learn very quickly how a business operates, what it is, what it does, so I could explain it and sell the opportunity to a potential candidate, which were accountants who, as you know more about the business than most other departments do.
Yep.
So after a couple of years of doing that for an agency, I then moved in-house. So I worked in the HR team of Experian, which is a well-known company in the UK and the US. However, I studied marketing and then I was recruiting marketing and sales roles. And I just thought to myself, I could do this job. And this was back in about 2010, when really there wasn't such thing as digital marketing managers. So I saw that as an opportunity for me to switch industries, which is usually quite hard, but having sat on both sides of the recruitment table, it was a little bit easier for me. And I got my first role as the online marketing manager at a small business in the East Midlands. But what that sparked for me was my interest in building out the digital campaigns for companies. And over the next 4 or 5 years, I worked as usually in software companies as their first marketing hire. And I went in and built everything, all the systems, all the processes, all the technology from the ground up. As I said, I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I was reaching the age of 30, and because I finished university, went straight into work, I thought I'm going to give myself an early retirement. And I went traveling for a year, and Beautiful. I traveled around South America and Southeast Asia, got a chance to visit some friends in Australia whilst I was over that side of the world too.
Very nice.
But whilst I was away, I made the decision that I wasn't going to go back to a 9-to-5 job. And really what was a catalyst for that was an old contact had reached out to me when I was in South America, and he asked if I could help with a HubSpot CRM implementation. Mm-hmm. I named a price. He said yes, and I got paid, did the work in about 2 weeks, stayed in a very nice hotel in Chile, Santiago, to treat myself. And that was it. I thought I'm never going back to the world of work. So yeah. Upon returning to the UK, I set up my own business, which was a consultancy helping software companies build out their marketing technology stacks and just how that fits into the overall strategy. Did that for 2 years, really fun time, but very exhausting. Busy with 2 or 3 clients at a time, which were very labor intensive. And I made the mistake of building the business around me. So it ultimately wasn't scalable. I then saw an opportunity to work in a company which was a productized service. And it was around 60 people when I joined. I grew it to 100, all remote. And then after about a year and a half of working there, I wanted to build my own thing. I missed building something. I was just too busy fixing and servicing.
Yeah.
And That brings us up to June 2020 when I started an agency called Speak on Podcasts, where we help our customers secure interviews on podcasts that their audience listens to.
That's fantastic insight. Thank you very much for that detailed introduction. It's a great, I guess, stepping stone, a great segue for us to have a deep conversation about how things are changing in terms of traditional marketing as opposed to the work that you're doing with your clients. I'm wondering if you can give us a bit of background by comparison, what traditional marketing strategies are, because a lot of people do them, but they're not actually too sure what they all mean. What are we talking about when we're talking about traditional marketing strategies?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I like to call them the foundational marketing. So what I mean by that is you need to have a website, and the website needs to look nice, it needs to work well, and it needs to have the customer's journey in mind. So not everybody coming to your website today is going to be looking to sign up for a free trial, to get a demo, or to buy from you. A lot of people are there to learn and to be educated. So your website needs to cater to those people at the different stages of the buyer's journey. You also need to have a presence on social media. And again, it's all about the foundation. So making sure that you have profiles on the social media channels where your audience exists. And I think I see a lot of companies make the mistake of having a Snapchat, Vine when that was a thing, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. But if they're selling to B2B organizations, they probably don't need to be on all of those social channels.
Yes.
But having a presence on the social channels where your audience is spending time is really important from a credibility point of view, because what a lot of people forget is that when a potential customer is looking at your site, they're comparing you to other vendors. And the vendor that has a very active social profile, they have engaged followers and conversations going on, just looks a little bit more credible than the empty account which is the other vendor, which has no engagement and no posts. So social media is one of the things, a website is another. But I think down to its core, marketing is all about understanding who it is that you want to be having conversations with, who do you want to be influencing, and really understanding what their challenges are and creating content that can help them overcome those challenges. And one of the most important things to remember is those challenges doesn't have to be just what your solution is or does. So to give an example, previously I worked for a company that sold lead research and data enrichment for sales teams. Now, I sold to VP of sales who needed data, but that wasn't the only thing they needed. They also needed to help onboarding and hiring new staff. They needed help training their staff. They needed help on several other things within their role.
Yeah.
So what we did as an organization from a marketing point of view is thought, what are all of the challenges that my customers have, and how can we create content to help them solve those challenges to become known, liked, and trusted? And I think that's really what is key about marketing.
Yes, thank you so very much. Now, I know a lot of people who are not, I guess, experienced would jump into the whole, how do I sell stuff? What's the difference between marketing and making sales? Is there a difference?
It's a really great question. And I personally think that there is a slight difference. The marketing is all about generating awareness and interest, and then sales is all about qualifying whether that interest is a specific need right now, and whether this person is the right fit for the organization. So one thing that I've seen a lot across the organizations I've consulted with is that marketing drive leads because they're being targeted on generating leads. They hand those over to the sales teams, and the sales teams turn around and say, hey, what is this rubbish? These people aren't the right fit.
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's a disconnect, because one of the most important things about selling and sales, and I think a lot of small businesses and new businesses struggle with this, is that they don't qualify out people. And it's more important to qualify out, especially at the beginning, than it is to qualify in. And look, I've just started the business myself. I know exactly how it feels. You don't have a lot of leads coming in. You need to start more of your customer acquisition strategies. So you have the temptation to say yes to everybody because you need some revenue.
Yeah.
But by saying no to the wrong type of customers saves you so much time, headache, and resource in the long run.
Absolutely. You've got to be very selective, I think, don't you?
You really do. You really do. And don't be afraid of qualifying out. And I think where I've done that in the past and said, look, thank you for your time. I just don't think it's a good fit for us right now. And give them the reason why. Maybe it's because this is not the best place for them to be spending their money. They should be focusing on other things. By understanding who makes an ideal customer for you, you can actually serve those people better. And I personally sell with a lot of integrity. And if I don't think I can help somebody, I'll let them know and oftentimes point them in the right direction or introduce them to somebody who could help them out.
And that positions your business, and it's a wonderful thing that you do, because you're being straight up with your prospects, and you're opening the door for some and closing the door for others. And I think that's a great takeaway for everybody who's on the show with us today. It's okay to say no if that person isn't a good fit for your business. Now, I think this is a great stepping stone into the next part of the conversation. We've talked about the process of marketing and sales and what they mean, but going hand in hand with that, Mark, would be the need to have key performance indicators, or otherwise known as KPIs, for everybody who's not aware of what they mean. Now, I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about what KPIs are in detail and when they are relevant.
Really, really great question. So I think KPIs, for me, the way that I see them, is a way to align the organization around the common goals that you're hoping to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to break them down into personal and business related. So imagine you have a team of individuals. They understand what the business goals are. Maybe you need to deliver X or a certain amount of things per month for your customers if you're an agency. If it's software, it's sales typically, and growing MRR, monthly recurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But on a personal level, I think this is where KPIs become more important, because at the end of the day, you have, if you're the business owner, you have the vision, you know your next 3 or 4 moves, but your employees don't. And part of your job is to protect them from not worrying about what the next moves are. That's your job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you really need to give them an understanding of, hey, am I doing a good job? And how am I being measured for the job that I'm doing? And it helps you as the business owner from understanding whether this person is performing well against what the expectations are. And it also helps you defend and also approve any sort of progression within the team. So if somebody comes to you in 9 months' time and they say, hey, I want a pay rise, I've been working for 9 months, I perceive I've been doing a good job,
mm-hmm.
you actually have some numbers and metrics to benchmark them against and say, no, you're doing a great job, but however, you haven't reached all of the KPIs, you've been doing the minimum, but we really need to stretch you to the next level in order to reward you with the additional pay or extra holiday, whatever it may be. Without those KPIs in place, it can be very, very hard for you to have conversations and make decisions based on data.
Thank you for sharing. I'd love to go in a couple of different directions with this call if we can, Mark.
Sure.
I want to first jump over to Speak on Podcasts and talk specifically about the team that you currently have there, because I know there's a wonderful group of individuals from different nationalities and countries. Would that be a fair call?
Yeah, no, you're correct. I think we've just employed our 7th person who's not on the website just yet.
Mm-hmm.
He is from the US but lives in Chiang Mai.
Right.
In Thailand. So we were very considered at the beginning to build a completely remote company which knew no borders. It doesn't matter where you work or where you live, as long as you have the right skills and attitude and can bring extra things to the table, we'd consider the application. So in a way, we don't look at names, locations, nationalities, or anything like that. It's all about the experience and how people go through the application process. But I'm very proud in the 3.5 months that we've been running that we've been able to grow to 7 people all across the world. And it's fantastic. It's a little bit tricky when it comes to let's find a time where we could all speak for the team meetings and team trainings, but that's just once or twice a week where some of us have to make some sacrifices. Mm-hmm. I move and travel remotely as well, so I'm often changing time zones, which confuses everybody. But no, I'm very proud of what we've been able to build so far.
And it's amazing the era that we live in, isn't it, Mark, with this technology that, where are you right now, for example?
I'm in Sicily, in Italy.
Well, there you go. You're traveling around the world. I'm in Australia, and we're having this conversation just like 2 old friends at a coffee shop having a cup of coffee together. You can run businesses nowadays. What's your take on technology, and where do you think we're going to go in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I think just to take a step back from the technology piece, because technology facilitates the processes that you're wanting to be followed. Mm-hmm. Really, when you build a company which is remote first, you build everything from the ground up to work that way. I genuinely do feel and understand the stresses and the concerns of companies who were traditional office-based, who have had to transition to working remotely or hybrid. because they don't have the structure, they don't have the documentation in place to facilitate that. So for example, the rules that the rules that I subscribe to, if I ever have to do a process more than once, I'll record a video of how to do it. So not only because somebody else can do it, but if something happens to me one day and I'm not able to do that particular task, then there's a documentation of that task. And if I'm honest, I spent the first month and a half writing 300 pages of processes for the business before I had a single customer. And the main reason being is I was trying to think of all of the logic branches of what would happen if this, and what would we do when this happens. Mm-hmm. And what that did is it just accelerated our growth in the sense that we had the framework and we had the guidelines, and now all we do is just make edits to those 300 pages. But they're split into different documents, obviously. And I actually have a project manager who works for the company whose job is to own the processes. So any changes that need to be made, that's our project manager's job to change that. Now, going back to the point about technology and being set up for remote, in the normal working environment, you may not have that project manager. You might not have somebody whose whole job is to look at processes and make them more efficient. Mm-hmm. But another thing about technology is communication. So I record a lot of videos, which gives updates to people. I might be recording that video at 11. So my employee in the US can watch that in real time almost. But the one in the Philippines, one in Chiang Mai, they can watch that when they wake up. Our other employee who's in Portugal and Czech Republic, they can watch that when they get up the next day as well. So it really, the technology helps you communicate, but you've got to think about the ways in which you need to communicate. Do you really need to have a meeting where everybody turns up at the same time? Or is a 5-minute video just walking through an update or showing a new process, is that going to work and be efficient? So I think it really comes down to thinking about what is the best way to communicate. And for example, we don't have any meetings on Fridays. Mm-hmm. We prefer to keep Fridays as our admin day, our winding down day. And, I understand that all of us are busy. Everybody's working hard. And on Friday, if we just focus on the admin tasks to make sure things are all set up for the next week, and it's an easier day, then I'm happy with that because my employees are happy and I'm happy.
This call is a hand-in-glove conversation, Mark, because we have startup entrepreneurs and existing small to medium-sized business owners and book authors who listen into the show, and having you here sharing this insight into the things that you go through is just wonderful. I'd just like to touch on, if we could, Mark, have you seen, given the nature of the cultural makeup of the people working inside your business remotely, that different ideas have come from each part of your business?
Yes, so there is. So the one thing that I learned from my previous experience, and we had around 100 remote employees spanning even wider geography from where we are right now, mm-hmm. is that there's different cultures and different cultural elements that make communication a little bit more difficult. So for example, some cultures, they don't like to question authority, and they may not make suggestions even if they think a process can be improved. So it took a lot of work for me to overcome those barriers. And what I ended up doing was recording a video every week on a Friday, which was a company update to share with everybody. Sometimes I'd wear a silly hat or, just do something to make myself more personable and more approachable. I'd tell stories and anecdotes and things I did as a mistake, because I wanted everybody to know that it's a safe place to make mistakes, mm-hmm. As long as we learn from them. And the best thing I did there was I really nominated a couple of individuals who were in the same country to be the spokesperson for the masses, mm-hmm. Because I just couldn't convert 60 people who live and were brought up in a certain way to change their whole cultural identity and be comfortable sharing feedback. But there were a few people who were okay with that, and because they'd previously worked with US companies and European companies, so they became the spokespeople, and any feedback went to them, and then that feedback came to me, and then I made sure that I did an extra job of communicating back to everybody, thanking for the suggestions, letting people know how we're going to change things and improve things moving forward. The ideas, though, that come out of it, one of our employees is an ex-chief of staff for a judge, and she has so much of a process and an attention to detail, as you can imagine, yes. Working for a judge in the legal sector, that she is finding so many little holes in the process that I originally wrote a few months ago, and she's able to fix it. What's great though about I think having people with different backgrounds and different experiences is that that reflects our customers. So a lot of our customers work in different industries. They're focusing on different audiences. So by having people that have got broad experience and exposure to these different industries helps us with the context of understanding our customers and understanding what the objectives of our customers are.
Oh yeah, I wonder. I always come back to the human element of a business, and we're going to be talking about that in terms of the actual service provisions that you provide for your clients. How did you feel? You know, that first moment that you knew that you were bringing this team together, and there were struggles in front of you, but you know you signed up that first client, because we love taking people through that journey as entrepreneurs. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so the first few months, so one of the things that I learned, this is from managing people before, is that as a middle manager, for example, my job is to hold an umbrella above the people that report into me and protect all of the fallout coming from the angry director above. So my job is to protect the people who report into me. And then my job is also to manage the expectations of those that report into me, to say, hey, look, I need to know this information at this time in this way, because I need to trust your word and take that to my management as well. So from a human point of view, it just really comes down to, for me, it comes down to managing expectations. I think as long as everybody understands what's required of them, what their responsibilities are, and what good looks like, then you can really manage the expectations, and everybody knows where they stand. But yes, it's nerve-wracking, Rick, knowing that you've got mouths to feed, mortgages to pay. I don't even have a mortgage myself because I'm very nomadic. I've got employees that have mortgages. So there is some pressure there to make sure that we are focusing as much as we can on bringing in new business. And I think this is a really important segue in when I built the company with my co-founder, when we built the company, we built it as a product, not something that me or Jacob, the co-founder, had to do ourselves. So, and that was the mistake I made when I worked as a consultant. It was me. I was doing the analysis. I was doing the audits. I was doing the implementations. I was doing the training. And I could only work with 2 or 3 companies at a time. And every company was different in terms of their requirements. So I was very, very considered and very deliberate in building this business in a way that it doesn't require me to do the actual work, even though I can do it. And that's a challenge for me because I'm a very process and a systems thinker. I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well. So I've had to work on myself a lot to say, no, stand back. If things go wrong, they can be fixed, but you need to give the responsibility to others to deliver the work. And I think for a lot of small businesses, especially when they're starting out, it can be very hard to make that decision. And one of the conscious decisions that I made is I brought a project manager in from day one. So, and I was very fortunate to have worked with her in the past, and she was able to take on the first customers, go through the processes, make changes, ask me questions. And we had so many conversations in the beginning. A lot of moments, Rick, where I was like, oh yeah, I did not think of that.
Didn't think of that. Yeah.
Why did I write 3 pages about this? Nobody's even asked us about this particular question. So yeah, very, very fortunate to have somebody who trusted me and took a leap of faith. But fast forward, 3 months later, and we're now at 7 employees and actively growing.
Yeah, it's wonderful. My future business, Mark, as you know, is all about helpful people, helping people, and you showing the real and raw side to what it's like to being a co-founder of a business is so powerful. Thank you very much for sharing. Now, we were talking about KPIs earlier and how businesses often neglect the attributable channels like word of mouth and organic content, and even podcast interviews like today. Where is marketing changing, and what's becoming more important?
So to frame this answer, I think a lot of marketers and a lot of salespeople do not play the long game. And what I mean by that is that they have monthly or quarterly targets which they have to hit. I've been there myself. I'm setting those targets for my team, so I understand it. But there is so much power in playing the long game, and also with giving value without expecting anything in return. And just like I used the example before, when I couldn't work with a customer or a potential customer, I would do everything I can to help them because I know they still have the challenge that they came to me with. It's just that they're not a fit for me. So by making those introductions and making those referrals to other people, I would often get work being referred to me by those people. So I turned a potential negative scenario and situation into a positive. When it in specifically the podcasting, so now we're thinking you're not playing the long game. People don't like to be sold to, yet everybody likes to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And when people buy, we really buy only for two main reasons, two huge categories. One is to avoid pain or a loss. The other one is for pleasure. Now, if we're talking about business to business, then really we're focusing on the avoiding a loss or to avoid pain.
Yeah.
So just remembering these things as well. So when you are an organization and traditionally you're creating content and you're putting it behind on a landing page, behind a form, somebody has a problem, you have the answer. And what you're doing is you're putting that answer behind a form. That doesn't create a great environment or impression to that individual when all they want is to find out the answer. And you've said that you've got the answer, but you're making them fill out a nine fielded form with their personal details, their mobile number, their email address. So I think where I'm going with this is that the perception of what marketing has to do has changed. The buyers are more informed and aware the buyers are more informed and aware, and they know how to research. Yeah. I didn't get taught how to use Google at school because Google wasn't a thing. I hope they are teaching children how to use Google because it's the best skill that any child can learn. But think about it. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. They have a problem. They're looking for a solution. They've clicked on two websites. They've opened up two different tabs. One of the tabs is a landing page which has a white paper or a guide, whatever it may be, behind a form. But the other tab from a different vendor is a 30 to 40 minute podcast interview where this person has described the solution, talked about the outcome, and talked about how they got there. Which one is going to be more powerful, more useful for the potential buyer?
Yes, absolutely. I know the answer to that.
Yeah. So very easy when I frame it in that way. But I think a lot of the time, because sales marketing, we have KPIs, we're trying to generate leads, we're trying to close deals. We're just not thinking enough about the customer, and we're not thinking enough about their journey. And one of the great things about this proactive approach, which is something you mentioned before, this proactive approach to marketing is that a podcast like this interview that we're doing now is going to be live forever. Essentially, or until you stop paying the hosting bills, Rick. But it will live online. And one of the great things about podcasts is that when people have a problem, they then search for the solution. And if the podcast episode that you've spoken on are optimized well enough with the show notes, with the title, then they're going to find your results and they're going to hear you. And they're going to hear you very intimately because they're listening to you speak for 35, 40 minutes, maybe even an hour at certain times, right in their ear. And I haven't done too much research on this, but psychologically, that must be more powerful than reading a piece of text or looking at an image because it feels intimate. They get to know you. They get to know how you sound. And for me, I'm a very cynical marketer, Rick. I've been around for long enough and seen a lot of the fads and trends. Yep. And credibility is quite easy to fake. I could go and put a load of fake logos on my website and say that I work with them. What is hard to fake is real credibility, and one of the best ways to build that credibility is through storytelling. As human beings, we've been wired to listen and to enjoy stories for thousands of years, and it's something that in the medium of podcasts is a very, very powerful thing, which not a lot of marketing and salespeople or companies are thinking about right now.
Yeah, we're right at the pointy end of it, aren't we? We're just coming into this new phase, and I guess this makes up part of your secret sauce that you talk about on your website. And for everybody who's on the call with us today, Mark's going to share details about his website. But I've been there, Mark, and I've seen what you're talking about in terms of reducing the friction of getting the answers to questions when people get there. But we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Now, how important is trust when you're building, relationships with your clients?
It's so important, and I think one of the best ways to build that trust is going back to that managing expectations. It's letting people know clearly what's going to happen, when and where, and as much as you. So we're having this experience at the moment. So we have an onboarding process where we let customers know over a call exactly what the next steps are. Not every customer learns by listening. Some customers will learn by reading.
Yeah.
So what we've found is that we need to reiterate our point or reiterate the actions and the next steps in multiple different ways so that the customers know what's going on. So for an example, we use a Google Sheet with our customers to keep them updated of the podcasts that we're having conversations with and what the next steps are in the booking process. During the onboarding call, we let our customers know verbally, or sometimes we do a video call, but we let them know that it's your responsibility, Mr. Customer, to respond to these comments in the Google Sheet when they come in. The longer you don't respond, there is an increasing chance that podcast hosts may no longer be interested because they're busy. I've said that. I was on the call. I say it every time. It's part of my script. Yet still some customers never respond to the comments. And it's because you forget as a business owner that this is your baby. This business is my baby, and I'm invested in making sure that everything is communicated effectively and at the right time. However, for a customer, we're just 1 hour in an 8 or 9 or 10-hour day of that they have, and they've got other priorities and other things that are taking their share of mind. So you just have to continuously communicate, and the rule that we have in our company is communicate with our customers until they ask us to stop. If we can get them to say, thank you, Mark, I understand. I won't make this mistake again. I'll make sure I'm a little bit more active on the Google Sheet, just in this particular example. That's fine. But the one thing that I am coaching all of the team on is do not be afraid of over communicating, because the worst thing that can happen is they'll just ask us to stop communicating as much, which isn't a bad thing.
You know, the thing that's coming out through this conversation for me, Mark, is the fact that you are willing as a group, as an organization, to forge a real relationship which makes you, as the business owners, communicate, stay in contact, actually guide and maybe even nudge your clients a little bit to keep going, because ultimately as an agency, you're there to help them. And like you said, people are busy, so it's a credit to you. Now, who exactly is your target audience? Who do you serve?
Yeah, so we have a real mixture. I think the most important thing, again, thinking about qualifying in or out people, speaking on podcasts is very much a PR activity or a marketing, it's proactive marketing. It's not a lead generation strategy, and therefore shouldn't be compared to lead generation strategies. So our ideal customers are customers who understand the importance of investing in their brand and the brand awareness, and also investing in the long play of this strategy. Because as we mentioned, if they're speaking on 4 podcasts per month, then that builds up over time.
Yeah.
And there will be people. So I shared a screenshot on Twitter the other day, which was I had 2 people reach out to me. I woke up one morning, went on LinkedIn, saw 2 connection requests. Both of them had said, really enjoyed your podcast episode on podcast name, really enjoyed your webinar on this with Mailshake. I recorded those 6 months ago. They went live 6 months. I hadn't forgotten about them, but they hadn't been top of mind for a while. But these people were looking to solve a challenge or looking to answer a question, and they discovered that content at a time which was important to them. So that's the power of doing podcasts on a regular basis, is because in the future it lives online.
I just want to, I guess, reveal to our audience, Mark, who exactly is your audience? Who are your target clients?
So we have a couple of categories. We have a number of customers who are in the C-suite, so pretty senior in large organizations who are investing in their personal brand, and they perhaps have a marketing budget for that. So we work with those. We have a lot of software companies and CMOs of software companies, really because that audience can be very easily identified. There are a number of consultants, so we have a sales consultant and a marketing consultant as customers. We have a number of book authors, some coaches, and really the subjects really do vary. Some of them are executive coaches talking about work-life balance, others organizational culture. It really does vary. I think the most important thing for us, and for us to have a very honest conversation with our potential customers, is this the right strategy for you right now, given where your business is right now?
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. This has just been an absolutely jam-packed call full of great content. So if you're a coach, you're a business owner, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur looking for the long game, podcasting is where it's at. It's going to be around a long time. If you want to get content out there and you want to be guided through the process, I definitely would be reaching out to Mark and his team at Speak On Podcasts. And with all that being said, Mark, where are people going to go when they want to find you and work with you?
Brilliant. Thank you, Rick. So yeah, the best place to find us is speakonpodcasts.com. I tried to keep the business name as simple as I could, so it says what it does on the tin. So speakonpodcasts.com.
Excellent. Well, look, again, as is customary for everybody's on the show today, no matter where you find this wonderful interview with Mark and myself, you will find links back to speakonpodcasts.com. I will be making absolutely sure of that. And with all that being said, Mark, I've had a wonderful time spending some time with you on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you, Rick. Me too. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.